Welcome to the Deliberate Exchange. My name is Chelsea. We're going to start with you are what you repeatedly do, not what you say you want, not what you mean to get around to eventually when you have time or energy or motivation, but what you practice day in, day out. And I'm not saying that to shame you. I am saying that to empower you, because the real significant shifts happen when you stop trying to change outcomes and start shifting identity. When you start asking yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? And then you back it up with micro actions, the deliberate ones, that align with that version of you. Now, this is not about becoming somebody else. This is about returning to who you actually are, underneath the stress and the patterns and the programming that are stopping you from doing things like this. And choosing values-aligned action over and over and over again until it becomes your baseline. And so when I walk you through these practices today, I want you to hear them, and not just as tools, but as identity builders. What I'll cover in this episode are truly the things that help me to become the woman I am today. The one that feels steady under pressure, who communicates instead of combusts, who self-regulates instead of people-pleasing or numbing out. And it's not because I got some kind of magic personality transplant, but because I built habits that matched the life that I said I wanted. Like with receipts, as the kids say. And this is where the real transformation lives. It's in the doing again and again and again until it becomes who you are. Or like I'm often heard saying, this is how I live now. And so today's episode is all about the exact practices that have actually moved the needle in my life. Now, understand, I've had an episode before where I talked about a lot of self-care that is performative, and how I thought that getting my nails done or going for, getting my roots touched up and a haircut felt like self-care. And I'll link that episode so you can go and listen to it. But these actually make a difference in my life. These aren't things that just sound good in theory. And they're not just these Pinterest-worthy rituals that typically I would start and then abandon very quickly after. I'm meaning the things that are actually helping me feel like myself again, that help me to self-regulate and set a spiral, and to stay connected with the people that I love instead of lashing out at them or withdrawing completely. These are the tools that I use when I'm reactive, when I'm doubting myself, when I'm feeling like I'm spiraling into those old patterns again that I really thought that I had outgrown. So this is now how I go through things. So let's get into it. So the first thing is the appreciation rampage. Now, I do this when I'm feeling a little snippy, a little self-pity-ish, like that mood when you're irritated at your partner and everybody is annoying and nothing feels good, nothing is going right. And if you're being honest with yourself, you can't really identify or pinpoint a real reason for it. And that's when I do an appreciation rampage. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't always want to do this. But I know that resentment breeds in the absence of perspective. So I make myself pause, and I name 5 or 10 or 20 things that I can appreciate in that moment. Or I'll set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes, and I'll just write all the things that I'm appreciative of. They might start really small and petty, I appreciate that I live in a house and not a tent, or that coffee exists, or I appreciate that my partner tried even if it missed the mark in my estimation. And here's why it works. Your brain, specifically the reticular activating system, filters the world through the lens that you give it. So if you are in that mode and you're stuck in what is wrong, it will keep showing you exactly what is wrong. Now, if you flip that lens to what's working, it then starts showing you more supportive data. Now, I don't want to confuse this with like the toxic positivity, like everything is awesome when like clearly it isn't. But we'll call this nervous system rerouting. This is literally how I stop myself from blowing up over dishes in the sink or forgotten text messages and start seeing the truth. That I'm safe, that I'm supported, that I'm overstimulated and under-resourced. And I need to come back to me before I try to fix anything outside of me. Now, the next thing I do on a regular basis is raging on the page. This is all about anger. And this one's, in my opinion, pretty huge. And if you listen to the last episode that I did, it was all about like the big blow-ups that I had while we were building our house and the unchecked anger that I had. And this is also good for you if you are a people pleaser or you have been taught to stay nice or that women shouldn't experience anger. For me, I used to swallow a lot of my anger until it either exploded, like what I described in that episode, again, that I'll link in the show notes, or showed up in other kind of ways, like resentment or sarcasm or snapping over nothing. And so now I do rage on the page. There's no censoring here, and there's no trying to sound evolved. I just write what's real. Like, I am so angry about my dog barking nonsense. Like, I'm so tired of X, Y, and Z. I feel like nobody sees me. Like, I wish that more people shared my stuff. I wish that I'm angry about not being farther along. Even if it's messy or mean, or like you feel guilty about writing it in the first place, or it makes no sense at all, it needs to come out. You can't heal what you're still performing. And then what often ends up happening with me is what we think we're angry about, or what I think I'm angry about, is almost never the real root of what I'm angry about. So this practice specifically gets under the irritation and into the grief, into the unmet need. And the moment you felt abandoned and decided you'd never feel that again. And when that clears, you're softer, you're more available. Your relationship stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like something you can navigate to from wholeness and not wounds. Now, the best way to do this practice is to grab your journal, set a timer, because you don't want to live in this mode, but we do want to kind of alleviate the pressure cooker. So set the timer for 5 or 10 minutes and start with the sentence stem, I am so angry about or with, and then write. Uncensored. If you're angry with your kids, your spouse, your parents, your dog, the world, whatever that is, write it. And then when you're done writing that, as I had learned from Gabby Bernstein, where I initially got this particular practice, listening to binaural beats afterwards, or doing some breath work or some kind of somatic movement to help discharge the energy that has accumulated from the emotion of anger. So the other thing that's really important to my overall life and like my day-to-day is my deliberate morning ritual. Now, before I had a morning practice, I would wake up scattered. I would hit snooze way too many times. And then I would check my phone. I would go between Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and emails and text messages, like just to see if there was anything there for me. And I would scroll social media, and then I would feel behind on life before I had even had a cup of coffee or brushed my teeth. And then like I'd wonder why I was so anxious or feeling so disconnected or annoyed all day. And now my mornings are really deliberate, of course, because I'm the deliberate one. I start with gratitude. I flood my body with the dopamine, like that reward chemical for your brain. And I check in emotionally, like, how am I really feeling? Oftentimes, we don't really acknowledge, like, if we're experiencing a little bit of anxiety, if we're feeling frustrated, if we're feeling angry. And I don't do this to fix it, but to name it in the first place, because I don't want to keep stuffing these emotions down, because they will come out sideways later. And then I do some intention setting. This is where I literally tell my brain what I want to filter for. Like, I'll write things, let me find peace in my pace. Or let me trust that things are unfolding for me. I can surrender the outcome. And those little shifts end up activating my reticular activating system again. It's basically like setting the GPS for the day. And then, of course, I get into breathwork because I'm a breathwork coach. I want to wake up my system naturally. I want to change the air, change the filter, as it were, instead of jolting it with stress or caffeine. And I always do some meditation to meet the day with like mindfulness and not reactivity. And then this one thing, like, it shifts everything. Like, now, instead of scattered and late and tense, I'm grounded and focused and honestly, like, more loving to myself and others because I filled my own cup first. Now, what's important about these deliberate mornings is this is not a huge expenditure of time. I'm not sitting in meditation for 20, 30 minutes at a time. I am not doing breath work for 20, 30 minutes. Even the journaling is everything is deliberately designed to be as efficient as possible because I got shit to do in my day. The other thing that's really critical to making sure that I feel best are weekly breathwork journeys. This is like what I describe to my clients as an oil change. So even with like those daily things that I've already mentioned and how I start my morning, life builds, life lifes, little irritations, energy that doesn't move, the stress that you subconsciously absorb but you don't actually release. So once a week, I take myself through a full feeling breathwork journey. It might be 30 minutes, it might be 75 minutes, but it is a deep somatic process. My body leads and my brain gets to rest. It's done a lot of work in the week. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I laugh, sometimes I release stuff that I didn't even know that I was carrying. Like, I'm always like, whoa, where did that come from? And that is where I clear the backlog. Because if I don't, it piles up. And then the smallest, tiniest thing can tip me over the edge. And I don't want that to happen. So these journeys really help me to regulate my nervous system at like a cellular level. They help me hold on to the other tools that I have. And truly, this gives me access to parts of myself that I didn't know that I had shut down in the first place. So then I'm more connected to my desire. I'm more able to self-regulate in my relationship. I'm less likely to be or to feel like I'm one bad day away from wanting to burn it all to the ground, to be perfectly honest. The other thing that shifts pretty much my entire world, and like this is something that I luckily caught on to earlier in my healing and growth journey, was the way that I talk to myself. And I think that this is something that is talked about, but is a very underestimated practice. I used to use really harsh language with myself. I would use sarcasm. I would make these little digs at myself. Like, you're so dumb. Like, of course you forgot this. I can't believe you did that. You're such a fucking idiot. And I would laugh it off, but inside it sticks. And the science that backs this up is like your brain literally cannot distinguish between the jokes that you're making, like, oh, you're so dumb, you're so silly, and the reality when it comes to self-talk. Every single little jab that you are speaking to yourself reinforces a neural pathway, and not in the best possible way in this case. And so now, like, I really try and not speak with sarcasm to other people, to myself. I don't use insults disguised as jokes towards myself. Like, I'm not perfect at it. I'm still taking time to adjust the way that I had always spoken to myself and changing it into a new way, but I'm deliberate. And if I mess up, I say, like, it's okay, Chels, we're human. What do we need to do now? And this one shift has improved my self-worth more than any external validation ever could. When you speak to yourself with love, your nervous system feels safe. It feels loved. And from that safety, you can expand. And that's also how imposter syndrome starts to melt, because you're not now like perpetually waiting for somebody else to validate your right to be here, because you've already claimed it for yourself. So why does this all matter? Why am I telling you about the stuff that I do on a daily or weekly basis? Because I didn't actually always live this way. I told you the story about what life looked like for me, 5.5, 6 years ago. I was reactive. I felt chronically behind, burnt out in a massive way. I was disconnected. I was deep in comparison to everyone and everything. I was performing in relationships while feeling completely empty inside. And now I feel resourced. Like, not perfect by any means. I'm still a work in progress, but I'm grounded. I can navigate stress and the emotional weather that comes in, the imposter syndrome that still kind of pops its head up every once in a while. I can handle and navigate relational conflict because I have built a foundation inside me. And all of this is what I teach. This is the work that I guide you through, whether it's inside my one-on-one mentorships, my breathwork journeys, my Rooted and Rising program, or even in the Power Map audits that I offer. Like, these are the practices that I help you make consistent. Because, like, I feel like so many of my clients that I talk to always, like, they start off with that. Like, I just wish I was more consistent. And if I was more consistent, I could, do really great things. And I help you shift that. I help you develop the consistency and discipline and safety in your body so you can do everything that you want, so that you can trust yourself and feel anchored and know how to find your way back to center when life goes sideways. So if this has resonated in any way, come hang out with me on Instagram. I'm the deliberate one. And if you're ready to integrate this into your own life, check the show notes. There's a few resources there for you, and a few really powerful ways to go deeper when you're ready. You weren't meant to do this alone. Even with all of these practices that I shared with you today, those were all from things that I've learned from my mentors and my coaches along the way. And this is what I'm imparting onto you, a way to, like a roadmap, like, follow me. This is what I'm doing. And anything that I teach my clients or guide them to are all things that I do myself because I know that it works. And maybe some of these you don't want to do. Maybe some of these might not work for you, but we figure it out and we figure out what does work for you. So if you're curious, reach out and we can chat. In the meantime, breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.